Hey guys, John here, and welcome to the first video for the requests playlist. Cold asks if we can make the bass pluck from the song A New Chapter Reprise. So let's listen to the reference and let's see how that sounds. And this is what I came up with here. So the first thing to talk about first is I'm going to be using pigments for this demonstration for a couple of reasons. One, it's very visual, so it's easy to see what I'm doing. And this is more so to give you the recipe for this sound that really can be recreated in any type of synth. But I feel like this shows it to you very, very, very easily. So back to the sound. Here's the original again. And when I first heard this, the first thing that stuck out to me was going to be the pre-delay before the reverb comes in. So we hear the pluck of the note, and then we hear the reverb come in right after it. The next thing to notice is going to be the actual texture of the waveform itself. Now it sounds a little hollow, so it doesn't necessarily sound like a saw wave to me. And that hollowness is generally going to be a square or some type of pulse wave. And then there's going to be a lot of highs cut out of that. And a little bit of filter movement. And the last thing to really notice for is going to be a little bit of saturation on the pluck itself. And then again, for reference, this is what I came up with. So let's go into pigments here and let's kind of recreate and let's see exactly what I've done here. So for our effects, let's turn a couple of these off. So I had a compressor, I have some distortion, and then some reverb. So first things first, let's pick our waveform. So this, I picked a square here, but I kind of moved the width a little bit. This is going to be about 0.612. If you're not in pigments, you might want to generally move that pulse wave just a little bit because default, it's going to sound like this. Let's take our filter off real quick. And now for this envelope, it's going to be actually pretty quick. So we have here in our envelopes tab, this is our main envelope here. So I have a little bit of attack at 1 millisecond. The decay is going to be very short. And then the sustain kind of doesn't necessarily matter too much because it's going to be such a quick note, but you can play around with that if you want to. So that's going to be our first kind of contour of the sound. Next thing we really want to do is really find the sound of that exact waveform. So let's listen to the original again. And then ours. Now it might be a little distracting because there's a lot of that top end. So that's one of the first things I did is I turned on the filter to kind of get a concept of that. And this filter is going to be a low pass 36, so a very steep curve. So I would suggest using a synth that does have a very sharp 36 low pass curve. And as you can see, this is going to be automated, or I guess automated, with the second envelope here. So let's load this up here. So our second envelope here is just a quick kind of spike here. And I'm really only modulating this by, if we click this plus here, by 0.23. So just a little bit here. And as you can see, when I have my mouse over this, this envelope here, if you look at the curve here, right up here when I have my mouse down here, you can see it's just moving a little bit. So it's slightly opening up the filter as the note is being struck. So next thing, let's close this envelope knob here. Now let's dial in the waveform itself. And maybe that's kind of close. It's around there. It's not exactly a square. It sounded a little pulsy to me. So with those two things done, now we can really dive into the effects to kind of make things happen. So the first thing I did is I turned on the reverb, and then I set the pre-delay quite a lot, so 129 milliseconds for the reverb, and the decay is quite a lot, and this is 0.36 in pigments. It might be a little different for whatever synth you're using. So we notice how once the note struck, this pre-delay waits exactly 129 milliseconds before the actual reverb starts coming in. And that's a big effect of this sound itself if we listen back to the original. So we're getting pretty close here, so here's what we have so far. And the next thing I added to was going to be a little bit of distortion. And this is going to be, I choose the exponential one. I kind of went through the different distortion modules and kind of just listened and A-B the reference to what I have here. And this one seemed the closest I could use. You could use something maybe like a soft clipper or something like that, maybe a tape type of distortion, something like that would work as well. And then I also have this low pass here to cut off the highs that this distortion introduces. Alternatively, you could add another EQ post on your channel and then put another filter like that on there as well to cut off those extra high notes. Because without this low pass, you're going to get all that in there as well. So you kind of want the distortion on the low end and the rest of the pluck, but you don't really want to add to it for the top end. So we turn that low pass back on. And we're pretty much there, but we do want to compress it a little bit. And I'm kind of going about 13.3 dB. This is kind of irrelevant depending on your signal. But I'm getting about 5 to maybe 6 dB of compression, and the ratio over here is going to be about 4-ish to 1. So that's generally the core blocks of this sound. And then we listen to ours again. And then one thing to notice as well, this is one of the very last steps, is there's actually velocity going on in this track as well. So if we zoom in here, we can see that these first couple plucks aren't very loud, but once we get to this one here and then this other one right here, it's going to be much louder. So that's why in ours, I went to our notes right here, and as you can see in this velocity here, I brought the first couple notes down, and then the third one is going to be a little bit higher, so it kind of simulates that as well. And we can drag that up a little bit more, so hold Control Shift and then drag our selection to add more selections, then hold down Alt and scroll with your wheel and maybe bring down the first couple ones just a little bit. And that's pretty much it for this sound as well. Once again, here's the original. And then our version. And you could also add a little bit more decay in the reverb, but generally that's the kind of thought process that goes behind recreating something like that. So I hope I helped you, and for the people who have also requested new stuff, your stuff is coming. I don't know exactly when it will be out, but rest assured it is on my list and I am working on it, so those will be coming out soon. If you're just watching this and you have a request in your mind, please let me know in the comments and like the video, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.